I would like to talk to you in this session about turning producers into reproducers. What I have wanted to share with you in this lesson is very important, and the best way that I can begin it is by sharing with you the 5 levels of leadership, which is in my book, Developing the Leader Within You. If you would take a moment and go clear down to the bottom to where the lowest level of leadership is, I would like to walk you through them in a couple of minutes. And out of the 5 levels of leadership, I would like to share with you why it's so essential to take good producers and help them to become reproducers, or help them to become leaders. If you go clear to the bottom, the first level is the position level. And that's where you and I always start in any company, any organization. We start on the position level, which the key word is rights, R-I-G-H-T-S, because people follow because they have to. Now, this is where we all begin, and nothing wrong with this level as long as we understand we're not to stay there. Too many times people think that leadership is position and only position, and so therefore they get a position and they stay right there. They never grow, they never develop, they never go any higher. My goal is to help you to understand that there are 5 levels of leadership, and that the higher you go, the more effective you are, and that the higher you go, the better you are going to be at reproducing and developing the leaders around you. So let's go to level number 2 for a moment. Level number 2 is the permission level, and the key word there is relationships. Now, when you get to level number 2, people follow you because they want to. You can already see the difference between level number 2 and level number 1. Level number 1, people follow you because they have to. In other words, all right, you have the title, you're the boss, you have leverage on them. So they follow you because they have to, but at level number 2, they follow you because they want to. Much better level. By the way, let me just ask the people here in the studio today. How many of you have ever followed a boss that you just had to follow him because you had to? He or she was on level number 1, and in every day of work you realize, all right, I've got to go follow them one more time, you know what I mean? How many of you ever had somebody like that, huh? It's not any fun, is it? Here's what I know about you. As quickly as possible, you were looking how can I get out of here? Isn't that right? Huh? And when you left the company or, you moved to another department, it was kind of like free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last, No more of that. Well, level number 1 is position. Level number 2 is permission. Level number 2 now, you're beginning to develop a relationship. They like you and you like them. Sadly, some people, when they get a good relationship, they say, well, this is all I need. I like them, they like me, and we settle. But you don't want to settle there. You want to get to level number 3, and level number 3 is the production level. The key word there is results. See, on level number 3, people follow you because of what you've done for the organization. Now you are beginning to be a leader that produces. You're bringing in some good bottom line growth for the company. They look at you and they basically say, since Joe came or since Susan came, oh my goodness, that whole department's turned around. Well, that's because you're on a production level. You're growing things under you, and you've done a lot of good things for the organization. But my goal is never to let people stay at level 3. My goal is always to get you to level number 4. Because level number 4 is what this lesson's all about. Level number 4 is all about reproducing and developing people, because level number 4 is the people development level. In other words, when you get to level number 4, you are developing people. The key word there is reproduction. You are now turning producers into reproducers, and people follow you at this level because of what you've done for them. Now, let me explain that. Loyalty in your organization and to you kicks in at level number 4. When people have had their life changed because you've poured your life into them, when they have grown because you've helped them grow, when you've mentored them, when you've helped them, when you've developed them, there's going to be a loyalty that they have for you that is awesome. Because they're going to look at you and they're going to say, I remember what I was like when I came into this company. Now I know what I'm like now, and my goodness, I've grown. And they're going to look at you and they're going to say, my life is better because of that person. That's level 4. Now, in your notes, I just want you to put a little star right by level number 4 and put your name right there, because that's where you want to go. You want to get to level number 4. You want to be able to produce, but you want to be able to reproduce people. You want to be able to develop leaders around you. Now, if you get to level number 4, level number 5 is going to be automatic. So I never work on level number 5, because if you do level 4 long enough, you're going to get to level 5. It's the personhood level. And the key word there is respect. And at this level, people follow you because of who you are and what you've done. In other words, you've done it so well with so many for so long that you are truly bigger than life. You are perhaps even on a pedestal in their eyes. They just look at you and you're kind of bigger than life. Don't worry about level 5. In fact, 2 levels are given to you. Level 1, when you get your job, and level 5, if you've grown as a leader. In the first one, the organization gives you that, and the last one, the people that you work with give you that level. It's levels 2, 3, and 4, the relationship level, the ability to produce results, and the ability to develop people. Those are the 3 that you have to gain and earn on your own. Now, here's what I have discovered about how people learn. Researchers say that we remember 10% of what we hear, 50% of what we see, 70% of what we say, and 90% of what we hear, see, say, and do. And I'm going to spend some time now giving you the 5 steps, the 5 key essential steps in the process of turning producers into reproducers. I have used these 5 steps that I'm going to now give you for over 30 years. I have found that to develop people, if I can do these 5 things well, I will develop and grow leaders around me. Step number 1, I model. Let's just start there. I model. In other words, people do what people see. Classic example. When Benjamin Franklin wanted to encourage the people of Philadelphia to use street lighting, he got a wonderful lantern and he put it outside his door on a post, polished the glass every day, and every evening he would light the wick and the front part of his house would light up. He never said a word to anybody else in Philadelphia. He never said anybody else ought to do that. It just was when they were walking down the street, when they came to his house, they could see the sidewalks. And it was clear for them. And pretty soon, someone else bought a light, and someone else, until all of Philadelphia was the first city to have street lights. You see, Benjamin Franklin understood the process of modeling. People do what people see. He understood the value of the fact that the leader does go first, and the leader is the most visual. And people will truly follow the leader, and people will do what the leader does. So let me give you 5 thoughts about modeling. Number 1, it's easier to teach what is right than to do what is right. Isn't that the truth? Boy, when I began working on this lesson for you, I began to realize, oh my goodness, it's so much easier to teach you than it is to do it. Isn't that right? And sometimes don't we wish we'd say, no, don't do as I do, just do as I say. In fact, I love this next statement. No matter what you teach the child, he insists on behaving like his parents. There are 2 types of leaders. They're what I call the travel agent leader. The travel agent leader sends people to their destination. Isn't that true? You go to the travel agent, they get you the ticket, they give you the brochures, the travel agent leader, they've never been there. They've never been there. Isn't that right? They're telling you what a great job or what a great time you're going to have, and they've never been there themselves. They give you all the brochures and they wave to you as you go in the parking lot, bon voyage, you know what I'm saying? They're sending you places they've never been themselves. I know a lot of leaders just like that. They're always pointing their people and say, go there, do this, try that. They've never gone there. They've never done that. They've never tried that. They're travel agent leaders. They're sending people where they've never been themselves. Now, there's another kind of leader that you want to be. That's a tour guide leader. Tour guides take people to places they've been to many times. You get on the bus with a tour guide, what do they say? Well, I've grown up in this area. Here's what we're going to see today. And they've got all kind of wonderful stories because they've been on this path many, many times. They've been there, they've done that, they've seen that, they've experienced that, and they begin to share wonderful and personal knowledge about how it's affected them and how it's going to affect you and what it will do for you in that whole process. But I have discovered it is easier to teach what is right than to do what is right. My first challenge as a leader, I can remember going back many, many years now. My first challenge of a leader was in this area, to live what I taught. I found as a young leader, it was awfully easy to tell people what I thought they should do or what I thought that where we should go. But I realized real quickly that, John, if you don't live it, don't try to transport it. Don't try to export what's not on the inside of you. If you don't live it, don't teach it. Just back away from it. And then I read a book by Fred Smith that's no longer in print. I wish it was, because it was a great leadership book called Learning to Lead. And in that book on Learning to Lead, basically Fred Smith talked to us about what he called incarnational leadership, fleshing leadership out for people to see. And he basically said, what I do and what I say has to match up. In fact, in your notes, here's the way this works. When what I do and when what I say is the same, the result is clarity. In other words, I'm saying it and I'm doing it. It's very clear to the people to follow. But when what I do and what I say is different, the result is confusion. And Norman Vincent Peale said, nothing is more confusing than people who give good advice and set bad examples. So in modeling, the first lesson I've learned, and it's been true to me, is it's easier to teach what is right than to do what is right. The second lesson in modeling that I've learned is that people do what people see. That's just an absolute fact. People do what people see. And then I have this little expression, a pint equal a gallon. You say, John, how does a pint equal a gallon? A pint of example is worth a gallon of advice. So stay on the example modeling side, because people learn three ways. 89% of what we learn is visual. In other words, what I learn, I see it first before I learn it. 10% is audio through the ears, and 1% through the other senses. And when I say people do what people see, it's just simple. It takes a leader to know a leader. It takes a leader to show a leader. It takes a leader to grow a leader. We've already talked about that. But that's a fact. Only leaders know leaders. Only leaders can show leaders, and only leaders can grow leaders. People do what people see. Now, the third thing I want to talk to you about modeling, since it's so important in developing leaders around you, the third thing I want to talk to you about modeling is probably the one that will challenge you and I the most. Number 3, work on yourself before you work on others. In other words, leaders go first. That's a fact. Work on yourself before you work on others. I was doing a leadership conference, and a young man raised his hand and said, I've been inspired to be a leader today. He said, this is so exciting. He said, I got a question. He said, who do I start leading? I said, start with yourself. If you wouldn't follow yourself, why should anyone else? Start with yourself. So I have a list of questions, because I realize it's so important that I have to lead myself before I lead someone else. I have a list of questions that I ask myself before I ask others. Question number 1, have I done what I am about to ask others to do? If the answer is yes, this gives me credibility. Doesn't that make sense? I'm now a credible leader. I have done what I ask others to do. Question number 2, am I doing what I'm about to ask others to do? If the answer is yes, this gives me leadership. I get the leadership reins when I'm doing what I ask others to do. Now, notice the difference between question number 1 and question number 2 was question number 1's past tense. Question number 2's present tense. Because I run into all kinds of leaders who did it yesterday. And they're telling old war stories. And somehow they're thinking that their people can connect what they did yesterday with what they should be doing today. The question is, am I doing today? If I want to be a real leader, I've got to be able to answer yes to that. Question number 3. Well, this is a great question. Am I willing to do again what I'm about to ask others to do? If the answer is yes, this gives me connection. I connect with the people when I look at them and say, by the way, not only have I done it, not only am I doing it, but I'm going to do it again, and let's do it together. And all of a sudden they connect. They say, oh my goodness, our leader's getting right in the arena with us. They're going to take us together with them on this trip. This gives me huge connection with the people. Question number 4. Can I do well what I'm asking others to do? If the answer is yes, this gives me respect. 4 questions. One gives me credibility, one gives me leadership, one gives me connection or relationship with people, and the 4th question gives me respect. The result of answering yes to all 4 questions is motivation. Your people begin to be motivated when you can say yes to all 4 questions, and now you're modeling tremendous leadership because you're working on yourself before you work on others. It goes back to the wonderful Peanuts cartoon of Lucy talking to Charlie Brown, and she's saying to Charlie Brown, she said, "I would like to change the world." Charlie Brown says, "Oh, Lucy, that's just wonderful." He said, "Where would you start?" She said, "With you, Charlie Brown." With you. What I'm saying to you is very simple. Don't start with Charlie Brown. Lucy, start with yourself. Each one of us, work on yourself before you work on others. And number 4, work on yourself more than you work on others. Not only before you work on others, but more than you work on others, because most of my leadership challenges start with me. And most of my leadership changes start with me. Are you getting the picture? I'm the problem. I'm kind of like the guy who said, if I could kick the person most responsible for my problems, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. And when I talk about changes, I want you to know this is true. Work on yourself as a leader before you work on your people, even in the area of changes. I used to think that leaders like change and followers dislike change. I've come to the conclusion that's not true. Leaders don't like change any more than followers, unless it's their idea. Isn't that true? Work on yourself more and work on yourself before you work on others. Let's review. We're talking about 5 thoughts about modeling, which we've talked about 4. Number 1, it's easier to teach what is right than to do what is right. Number 2, people do what people see. Number 3, work on yourself before you work on others. Number 4, work on yourself more than you work on others. And number 5, this is a tremendous modeling truth. The example of others has profoundly influenced me. When I graduated from college, I never had a leadership course. I never had a course on relationships. I never had a course on how to train people, which is what I'm trying to share with you now. I never had a course on attitude development and how to think. In fact, I have 3 degrees, postgraduate degrees, all that stuff. I've never had a course on any of these things. So I realized that if I was going to learn the things that I needed to learn to be successful, I was going to have to go to other people. And as a very young leader, making very little money, I would pay people $100 for 30 minutes of their time if I realized that they could teach me something I didn't know. And I would go and I would ask questions and I would learn so much from them. Now that's a little project that I began in the 70s. I continue that project. Every month, I set an appointment with somebody that's bigger, faster, sharper than I am. Every month. And I take them to lunch. And I ask them questions. And I learn and I grow so much. Just last Thursday night in Orlando, Florida, I had dinner with a guy named Bill for 3 hours. Bill's a very successful leader, very successful businessman, has franchises all over Europe. And when I finished talking with him and asking him questions, I walked out of that restaurant and I said to myself, there's still room to grow, John. You're not there yet. You're still learning. And that's what I want for you. I want you to understand the 5 steps that will allow you to develop leaders around you so that you and they together can go to a higher level.